How I became Christian me. Growing up in church. One of my very first memories that my brain had ever formed was a memory of my family and I in the back of church. I remember my parents frantically trying to calm my brothers and I down so that we wouldn't make even more of a scene than we had already made. But still, despite the struggle, my mom and dad continued to drag my brothers and I to Mass every Sunday. On top of this, my brothers and I attended CCD, or Catechism, which is basically church school where you go for an hour or two every week and learn about your faith. I learned about a lot of things but never really understood what was being taught. Places and events were drilled into my head, but without the context of why they were important, I felt lost. Furthermore, I had school teaching me all of these things all over again about how the world came to be and why we do what we do, and it was hard to navigate which one was right. Even after going to church and CCD, I did not feel any closer to God, just more confused. High school and my severance with God. Flash forward to my freshman year of high school. My friends and I went from these innocent middle school clowns to hanging out with kids much older than us who had access to things that we had never had or seen before. Within the first month of my freshman year, I was doing things that even my older brother, who was a senior at the time, had never done before. That first time hanging out with those kids and having access to those substances, I finally felt happy. A weight had been lifted off my shoulders and I never thought could be lifted. It was at this point that I was the furthest away from God, and I didn't care. I loved every second of it. I was going to parties, had a bunch of new friends, life was great. But then I went from using at parties, to just with friends, to using alone, to using all the time. Before I knew it, I had spent all my money and every moment of my life was dedicated to feeling a certain way. I was stuck in an addictive loop and resorted to even stealing money so that I could buy more. I would use anything and everything to get me into that altered state. I had not only lost myself, but I had lost God along the way. Getting help in my revelation. Then one day I woke up and I felt wrong. My brain was broken and I couldn't think. I thought I was permanently brain damaged, as my brain had just flatlined. There were no thoughts, no feelings, nothing. I was terrified. I finally went to my parents and spilled the beans. I told them everything. I also told them that from that day on I would be done. I would never touch anything ever again. No substances, nothing. And that was the furthest thing from the truth. From that day on, I was enrolled into an intensive outpatient for substance abuse, where I spent 5 to 6 hours every day after school in a room with nothing but my clothes on my body, and talked to other people who were going through similar experiences. I was drug tested every single day, and it was essentially rehab that also allowed me to go to school. This lasted for almost an entire year, and at a certain point, I felt helpless. I didn't want to be helped. I was simply going through the motions of saying I wanted to get better, but deep down, I was just thinking about the next opportunity I could get high. I knew I had a problem, but I never thought I was an addict. Now this picture makes a lot more sense. I was far from Christ and didn't want to get close to him as I was so ashamed. But then, in the midst of my darkest times, when I wasn't sure if I even wanted to be alive anymore, I started to get better. My parents were still there loving me, and so was God. All of a sudden, something clicked, and the urge wasn't as strong. I finally had one moment where I thought about something else other than using, and it was like a breath of fresh air. Then I started to seek that fresh air, again and again. It wasn't until years later that I realized that that was God who had done that to me. It finally made sense. That day I bought a Bible and started receiving God's Word. I formed a habit of reading the Bible every single day. It became my lifeblood, my new addiction. My future with Christ. Now I carry my cross every day and spread the gospel wherever I can. I seek to help people find God and to be an example of what God can do in everyone's lives. I also want to be an example of what it means to be a Christian. However, this does not mean I am perfect. Just because I am a follower of Christ and he has transformed my life does not mean that I still don't struggle. Every day I am presented with temptations and am reminded of the life I once lived. But in those moments I remind myself why I changed. And yes, there have been many instances where I have had a setback and tried it again, but every time I go running back to God, because I am not perfect. No one is perfect except God and Christ above. Now I just have to have fun a little bit differently and need to rely on my faith to keep me strong and keep me away from those urges. I go fishing and I work on my car. Through the power of Christ, he has given me strength to fight through those urges and fight through those temptations. He has also given me the strength to share my testimony with you guys and to let you know that these miracles can be performed in all of your lives. I believe he still has a plan for me, and I believe that he has a plan for all of us. Thank you.